Why in the domestic Z-20 and Z-8 helicopters are increasingly mature today. The PLA Southeast Coast Elite Forces still use a large number of Russian-made Mi-171E. This civilian-to-military version of the hybrid equipment behind this seemingly contradictory phenomenon, reflecting the history of China's land navigation equipment development of a special course. Since the 1990s, the first introduction of the Mi-17 series of helicopters, this design from the Soviet era in the Chinese Army, has been in service for more than 30 years. The formation of a quarter-century equipment system, the latest improvements may even be in service until the 2040s. The phenomenon of this ultra-long standby phenomenon in the history of the world's aviation equipment can be said to be rare. China's relationship with the Mi-17 series began in 1991, during a special period after the collapse of the Soviet Union. At that time, China's helicopter industry was still in the early stages of learning. Z-5, copied from the Soviet Union Mi-4 design, has long been behind the times, and Z-8 program was launched in 1976, but because of the weak technical reserves, into a long period of stagnation. The Army Air Corps, as a new branch of the Army established only in 1985, faced with the tense situation in the Taiwan Straits, and the need to defend the southwestern border, the urgent need for modern transportation platforms to fill the vacuum of combat power, the introduction of the first batch of 24 Mi-17 has not only solved the urgent need, but also accidentally started an equipment saga that lasted 3 decades. These second-generation Mi-17s, powered by the TV3-117 engine, had a maximum takeoff weight of 14.5 tons and a payload capacity of 4.5 tons, dwarfing the then largest domestically produced helicopter, the Z-8 prototype. More crucially, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, Russia, in exchange for hard currency, exceptionally open to China, including the maintenance system, including a full set of technical information. This special historical window created a honeymoon period of Sino-Russian military technical cooperation. Over time, China's introduction of the Mi-17 series of helicopters has shown a clear strategic progression. More than 60 Mi-171s introduced between 1993 and 1997 were equipped with Western avionics, and their glass cockpits and GPS navigation systems significantly improved their operational effectiveness in complex environments. It was these helicopters that achieved a record of 300 tons of supplies, delivered in a single day in the canyons of the Wenquan earthquake in 2005, where aftershocks were frequent. The contract for 50 Mi-171Es signed in 2012 saw the unit price soar to $12 million, but the performance enhancements were worth every penny. The latest Klimov Design Bureau VK 2500 engine gave the helicopter a 6,000-meter plateau takeoff and landing capability. The all-composite rotor blade's lifespan was extended to 8,000 hours, and the reinforced cargo compartment structure was able to carry 4 tons of supplies or 26 heavily armed soldiers. The enhanced cargo bay structure can carry 4 tons of supplies or 26 heavily armed soldiers. These improvements made the Mi-171E the only aircraft capable of performing tactical transportation missions on the Tibetan Plateau at the time, and this irreplaceability is a key factor in the PLA's continued introduction of the Mi-171E. It is worth noting that, with the exception of the Mi-171SH, which will be introduced in 2019, all of the introduced models have been filed with the Russian side as civilian versions. Behind this unique, civilian-to-military modification model, there is an implied shrewd strategic consideration. Procurement through civilian channels not only circumvents the restrictions of international military trade treaties, but also obtains complete technical support from the Russian side. According to the Sino-Russian agreement, each civilian Mi-171E comes with a full set of maintenance manuals and training systems. A land navigation brigade in the Eastern Theater of the aircraft personnel revealed that they received the civilian version of the actual weapon mount interface. An armor protection module has been reserved for installation. This semi-finished state not only in line with international norms, but also for the subsequent militarization of the transformation of the buried pen. In Fujian, a modification center, technicians for these helicopters installed millimeter wave radar, infrared suppression devices, and ultraviolet missile approach warning system. The cargo compartment to add a fast descent rails, and medical evacuation module, rotor folding mechanism modified to enable it to have a 071 type dock landing ship carrying capacity. These local transformation not only maintains the combat capability of the equipment, but also provides a test platform for the domestic model, forming a unique introduction improvement feedback development path. Imitation of the plan is stranded to expose the deep dilemma of the aviation industry system. 2009 by the Air Force 5701 factory led the establishment of the Blue Sky Helicopter Company. In the Russian technical support only completed less than 10 Mi-171C assembly, and then ended without a problem. On the surface is the cost factor. The unit price after localization exceeds the original imports by 15%. But the deeper contradiction lies in the technical generation gap is difficult to cross, despite access to a full set of drawings provided by the Russian side. But the localization process is still stuck in the key materials and processes. The fatigue life of the domestic BT3V titanium alloy rotor beams is only up to 70% of the Russian products, and the gear reducer gear machining precision is not enough to cause a decline in transmission efficiency by 8%. More difficult, with the Mi-171E upgraded to VK2500 engine, the Russian side of the core technology blockade suddenly tightened. The copycat model into the just mass production, that is backward, embarrassing situation. This predicament ultimately prompted the decision makers to make strategic choices. Rather than stumbling along the road of imitation, it is better to focus resources on breakthroughs in domestic models. At that time, Z8 wide body type has overcome the overall aerodynamic layout and composite rotor technology. If you continue to copy the Russian model, not only will squeeze the limited R&D resources, but also will be delayed in the construction of domestic helicopter system. This break the wrist decision reflects a fundamental change in the idea of equipment development from short-term shortages to long-term layout. The life extension transformation project of the current Mi-171 fleet is a good example of system engineering. In a test base in northwest China, technicians have developed a unique, modular upgrade package for the early model of the TV3-117 engine through the addition of domestic FADIC control system, so that its fuel efficiency by 12%, the use of 3D printing technology to replicate the discontinued parts. The life of the fuselage will be extended from 8,000 hours to 12,000 hours. The most radical test model even tried to integrate domestic turboshaft. The most radical test model even tried to integrate the domestic turboshaft 10 engine, which failed to be popularized due to transmission system matching problems, but accumulated valuable data for the R and D of the Z8L. In the tactical application level, the Eastern Theater of War will be the old and new models, mixed into a high and low with combat units. The old Mi-171V to undertake daily training and logistical transportation, to maintain the flight hour consumption. The new Mi-171E is dedicated to combat readiness on duty, retrofitted with a tactical data chain and unmanned aerial vehicle combat system. This laddering mode of utilization keeps the overall attendance rate above 85%, far exceeding the average level of similar international fleets. From a geopolitical perspective, the special status of the Mi-171 series in China reflects the delicate balance of the great powers game. 2014, after the Crimean crisis, facing the intensification of the West's technological embargo, China signed a large military trade order with Russia that year, including 30 Mi-171Es. This seemingly contradictory move actually implies multiple considerations, not only for the development of domestic helicopters to fight for buffer time, but also through military purchases to maintain the relationship between China and Russia's strategic collaboration. More meaningful is that in 2020 during the India-China border confrontation, deployed in Houghton Airport Mi-171E group of frequent implementation of 5,000 meters above sea level assault airborne. This battle test not only verified the reliability of the equipment, but also to the potential opponents to show the introduction, digested, innovation, equipment system of the unique toughness. Now, when painted with low visibility paint new Mi-171E and digital camouflage Z20, soaring side by side in the Taiwan Straits front, this old and new mix and match formation mode reveals the Chinese Army's pragmatic philosophy of equipment, neither blind pursuit of the purity of the equipment system, nor adhere to the political correctness of the technical source, but to combat effectiveness as the only criterion to build a multi-layered, flexible combat capabilities. With the accelerated installation of Z8L widebody and Z20 10-ton general-purpose models, these Russian-made veterans will eventually be relegated to the second line, but the unique mark they have made in the PLA's equipment modernization process will become an indelible page in the history of China's military-industrial development.